Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After a round of golf last week, we are back to Gravehold, defending Gravehold from the Nameless, as we're playing Aeon's End by Indie Boards and Cards. This one is a boss battler taking on whatever boss we've chosen to take on, and try to reduce them to 0 before either Gravehold gets reduced to 0 health, or we both do. First up, let's work our way up from closer to the camera to all the way up to the top to get everything in. We've got two mages that we're controlling, and if you're a regular on the channel, you probably know the two magi we're taking out. First up, we've got our support mage, Solidia. These are both magi that I've built in a playthrough of Aeon's End Legacy. So you've got our starting hand up here, and then the starting deck. Special abilities for Solidia. First up is Vengeful Shadows. When you cast 2 or more spells during your casting phase, gain 1 ether. Power word Silence. Once per turn during your main phase, you may discard a card in hand. If you do, silence a minion. And Will of the High Priestess is her ultimate ability for 6 charges. Gain a spell from any supply pile. You may place that spell into any ally's hand, and any ally gains 2 charges. And looking at some of our spells, we might be leaning on that tonight. Player 2 is going to be taken by our attack mage from that playthrough, Nyrisia. Her special abilities, first up we've got Dark Blessing. Once per turn during your main phase, you may discard a card in hand. If you do, deal 1 damage. We've also got Rage of the Sith. Once per turn when you focus or open a breach, deal 2 damage. And Netherlord's Wrath. Cast any player's prepped spell without discarding it. That spell deals 1 additional damage, and any player returns a spell in their discard pile to their hand. As for our adversary tonight, we are taking on Maelstrom. Actually, let me set the health here, and then we'll meet tonight's nameless opponent. Maelstrom Risen. This is the second to last boss we're getting spoilerific in the Aeon's End Legacy playthrough. 65 health. Unleash ability, which is a keyword on cards in the Nemesis deck. Draw a card from the Beacon deck and put it into play. Special rules. When Maelstrom Risen's Assault turn order card is drawn, Gravehold suffers 1 damage for each beacon in play. Then Maelstrom Risen takes a turn as normal. The Assault turn order card is considered a Nemesis turn order card. When a beacon is discarded, place it in the Beacon discard pile next to the Beacon deck. Not the same as the Nemesis discard pile. When the Beacon deck is empty and a card would be drawn from it, shuffle the Beacon discard pile and place it face down to form the Beacon deck. And when there are 10 beacons in play, Maelstrom Risen opens a massive, destructive breach and the players lose. And actually, I'm going to make sure I turn that light on. That's coming through a lot better, so if you want to reread everything I just went through, feel free to pause the stream there and read it at your own pace. We need to go through the market last, and to be honest, this is probably one of our most inaccessible markets that we've ever had in a playthrough of Aeon's End. I'm actually going to adjust the camera just a little bit. That should do. First up, we've got our 3 gems. And we've got an Entangled Shard for 4 ether. Gain 2, and if you have 3 or more charges, gain an additional ether. Also in Gemland, we've got a Triplite Core for 4. Gain 3 ether that can only be used to gain cards. And our last gem is a Shining Tetrite for 6 ether. Gain 4 ether that cannot be used to gain a card. I do these market setups randomly the night before whenever I go to play Aeon's End. So I did not choose this market. This is what we're going to have to deal with. And our first relic is a Glass-Eyed Oracle for 1 ether. We either gain 1 or destroy this and any number of copies of this card in hand. You may gain a card with cost up to 3 times the number of copies destroyed. And our other relic is a Manifold Container for 4 ether. Gain 1. The next time you gain a card this turn, you may also gain a card that costs less than the gained card. So actually that might be helpful to access the market. And then for our 4 spells, first, we've got a Warping Haze. Cast, deal 2 damage. If you have 2 or more other prepped spells, deal 1 additional damage. And Conflagration for 3. It's a link, and we can prep 2 spells with link to the same breach. Cast, deal 2 damage, and gain an ether. Next up, we've got Catalyst for 6 ether. Cast, deal 2 damage. If you have 2 or less life, deal 5 additional damage. And we've got Radiance for 8 ether. Cast to deal 5 damage, and each ally draws a card. So, yeah, a pretty inaccessible market. We also need to go through our starting beacons, because 2 start in play as part of Maelstrom Risen's setup. So our first beacon is Grave Beacon with 1 health. Immediately, the player with the lowest life suffers 1 damage. We don't trigger these on setup. And our other beacon is Misery Beacon with 2 health. Immediately, any player discards a card in hand. Okay, that is everything all set up. So we've got our turn order deck, which you can see how that's built. We've got two of each player turn, the Nemesis, and Maelstrom's Assault turn, which right now would be dealing 2 damage. But hopefully we get something from the turn order deck that can help us put paid to that. So let's see what... We'll give this a quick shuffle. And a cut, and we will have our first turn. So our first turn in this game goes to player 2, so that goes over to Nyrisia. Looking at her hand, I'm going to start off with her... Let's use her 3 ether to focus a breach. I'll focus her 3 breach, and that'll trigger her Rage of the Sith, which once per turn when I focus or open a breach, I can deal 2 damage, which will take out the Misery Beacon. Then I'm going to prep a Spark to her 3 breach, and Nyrisia's Fury to her 1 breach. And then that's it for Nyrisia's turn. That will move to the discard pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we've got her next hand up. So our next turn order card is the Nemesis turn. This is a regular Nemesis turn. We would do anything that has a persistent effect, but nothing does. So now we'll draw a card from the turn order deck. So we will draw Whipping Wires. Oh joy. Persistent. If this is the assault turn, any player suffers 2 damage, otherwise unleash. And it's got 7 health. That's a pretty dangerous minion to have coming up already. Next up is player 1. So that's over to Solidia. And I think Solidia's turn is going to look fairly similar to Nyrisia's. We're going to prep Solidia's Spark to her 1, use her 3 ether to focus her 3 breach, and then prep a Spark to it. And then Solidia will draw back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And our next turn coming up is player 2, so that's over to Nyrisia. What do we want to do here? Well, I think we'll use the Nyrisia's Fury, which on cast, deal 1 damage and gain 1 ether that can only be used to gain a spell, and she gets a charge. We'll use that to take out the Grave Beacon. And then we'll point the Spark that has to be cast because we prepped it to the 3 breach, which is still closed, and we'll point that at the Whipping Wires for 1 damage. Then, so I've got one ether I can only use to get a spell, which I think, do I let that float away? No. So we'll go to 4 ether. I'll use 2 of the crystals and the 1 I can only use to get a spell to grab a Conflagration. And then I'll use the last of her ether to gain a Glass-Eyed Oracle. Then I'm going to discard a Spark to Dark Blessing to deal 1 damage to the Whipping Wires. And then we'll prep the Spark to her 1 breach. And then since we are out of cards in her draw pile, we're going to take her discard pile, flip it over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's her new draw pile. Okay, I forgot to get Nyrisia her charge. Next card from the turn order deck is the Assault turn. So this starts off with Maelstrom Risen, dealing a damage per beacon in play, except we have none. So the Whipping Wires Persistent goes off. Since this is the Assault turn, somebody suffers 2 damage. I will have Solidius suffer that for now, bringing her down to 8. And then we draw a new card from the Nemesis deck. Slice. Power 3. The player with the most expensive card in hand degrades that card and suffers 3 damage. Yowza. And no way to get rid of that, so that's just going to happen. And then the last card from the turn order deck, it's Solidia. So we'll use the Spark to hit the Whipping Wires for 1, bringing it down to 4. Then Solidia is going to use her Spark. Cast, deal 1 damage. If your discard pile contains 4 or more other cards, deal 2 additional damage, and she gets an Ether. So that'll be 3 damage to the Whipping Wires. I don't want to take that too much more. I don't want to take that more. So she's got 1. We'll go up to 4. So with that, let's go ahead and open her 3 breach. We'll use 3 of it to open her 3 breach, and then I'll discard a spare crystal to silence the Whipping Wires. That way, I can hold that off for a turn. And then we'll prep Sparks to her 1 and 3 breaches. Then we flip over Solidia's discard pile, and that's our turn. So that brings us over to shuffling the turn order deck, which I will go ahead and do that on camera in just a second here. Thank you guys for spending part of your Wednesday night with me, by the way. Whoop. Trying to make sure this deck gets a good shuffle. All right. Coming out of the turn order deck is player 2. So that's over to Nyrisia. We'll use the Spark. How do I want to use the Spark now? Do I want to point that at the Whipping Wires, or do I want to start on the boss? I think I'm going to start on the boss, actually. So we'll hit Maelstrom Risen for 1 damage to bring him down to 64. Then I'm going to use her 3 Ether to open her 3 breach. And we'll use Rage of the Sith to deal 1 damage to... We'll use that to deal 1 damage. Actually, Rage of the Sith deals 2 damage, and we'll hit Maelstrom Risen with that. Then we'll prep Nyrisia's Fury to her 3, Spark to her 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Next card out of the turn order deck is player 2, right back to Nyrisia. So we'll hit the boss once again with Nyrisia's Fury for 2, so that'll bring it down to 60. And we'll use the Spark to do what? We'll use the Spark to hit the boss as well for 1 to bring it down to 59. Let's see. Then we've got a Conflagration that will prep to 3, a Spark that'll go to 1, and we've got 3 to buy with. Actually, we've got 3 to buy with, or 4 if we get a spell. And I think we will get another Conflagration with that. So we'll use the 1 Ether we can only use to get a spell, and 2 of those. Then we'll discard this to hit Maelstrom Risen for another 1, bringing him down to 58. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The only bad thing now is Nyrisia's card. Nyrisia is now done for this round, but let's see what happens with the boss. Nemesis turn. So the Whipping Wires ability doesn't go off. Slice ticks down. And our next card from the turn order deck, or the Nemesis deck, Bleed Static. The player, power 3. The player with the most prepped spells suffers 2 damage for each of their prepped spells. Ouch. That could be painful. Our next card out of the turn order deck, hopefully it's Solidia so we can kill this Whipping Wires. And it is. Alright, Spark will make the Whipping Wires go toodaloo. Then we'll use the Spark on 3 to hit Maelstrom Risen for 2 damage, bringing him down to 56. And Nyrisia should have 2 charges. That Nyrisia's Fury is very powerful, but a certain somebody who shall remain me needs to remember to actually use it. Let's see, we are about to turn over Solidia's discard pile, which is rather unfortunate because that's going to turn off Solidia's Spark. But I think anyway we'll go Solidia's Spark to 3, regular Spark to 1, and we've got 3 to buy with, which will be... actually we did cast 2 spells this turn, so Solidia's Vengeful Shadows does turn on, which means we've got 4 actually, which I will use that to get a Triplite Core. Oop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So our next card coming out of the turn order deck, we still have the Assault turn to go and a Solidia card. It's the Assault turn, which the Assault turn does no damage. That ticks down to 1, that ticks down to 2, and our next Nemesis card, I have nothing. To discard, spend 6 Ether. Power 2, unleash twice. And then no bonus points for guessing whose card we've got here. That is Solidia. Okay. So we'll start off with a Solidia's Spark on the boss for another 2. And she's got an Ether. Actually, everything's hitting the boss for a total of 3 damage. Bringing the boss down to 53. And Solidia's got Solidia's got 2 Ether coming into the turn. Spark, Spark. And she's got a total of 5 to buy with. Which will be... a Warping Haze and 2 Glass-Eyed Oracles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turning the discard over, 5. Okay. Shuffling up the turn order deck. We've already got the boss down to 53 health. We definitely need to be, well, that I have nothing isn't a big problem at this point because we've got no beacons in play right now. Unfortunately, the next Nemesis turn is going to put Slice off. Is going to have Slice go off. Alright. Oop, I would put that on Nyrisia's discard pile. First card out of the turn order deck is player 1, over to Solidia. We will hit the Maelstrom Risen with 2 Sparks for a total of 3 damage, bringing him down to 50. We do need to be mindful of Bleed Static. Well, this would be a good turn for that to go off. I'll prep a Solidia's Spark to a 3 Breach, and I've got we've got 6 Ether, we've got 3 Ether that I can use for anything, and 3 I can only use to gain cards. Plus, yeah, we cast 2 Sparks, so we've got a total of 7 Ether. Let's see, I'll use the 3 that I can only use to gain cards to get another Warping Haze. Then 3 The other 3 is going to open Solidia's 2 breach outright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Let's see what card's next in the turn order deck. Player 1, right back to Solidia. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we definitely have enough cards in the discard pile. So Solidia's Spark is going to hit Maelstrom Risen for a total of 4 damage. So that brings Maelstrom Risen down to 46. And then we've got Warping Haze on a 3, Spark on a 1, and I've got 3 to buy with, which I think is going to be another Warping Haze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which unfortunately means Solidia is done for the round, but I don't think there's anything we can do about that. Next player turn up is the Maelstrom Assault turn. Once again, we're all clear on the beacons. Slice goes off. Who's got the most expensive card in hand? All zeros. I don't think degrade happens when you have all zeros in hand. At least it doesn't for... Actually, Solidia does have a 0 in hand. So unfortunately, she does have to degrade her Warping Haze, which will turn into another Glass-Eyed Oracle. That goes to hand. Solidia suffers... Actually, I don't think I have a... Oh, wait. I've got another rulebook in here, so let me look and see if this explains what the grade actually does. Here we are. Let's see, degrade. They may gain a card of the same type which costs less than the... Oh, so they actually can't degrade a card. Well, that player may. So if they can't gain a card of the same type, that doesn't actually do anything. So they don't get. So she doesn't get the Glass-Eyed Oracle. That's a double whammy because the degrade has to happen regardless, and suffers 3 damage. So because Solidia can't degrade a card, she actually suffers 5 damage, which is a big owie. So that's gone. That ticks down, as does that. So we've got a lot of problems here. And then our next card, Haze Spewer. 5 health, persistent. Gravehold suffers damage equal to this minion's current life. Then the minion suffers 1 damage. Ouch. Next card out of the turn order deck. Player 2, over to Nyrisia. I think we're going to have to use Gravehold as a shield on the Haze Spewer. So we'll start off by conflagrating the boss for 3, bringing Maelstrom Risen down to 43. Then we'll spark it for another 1 to bring it down to 42. Then, I just picked up Nyrisia's deck. Let's see, we'll prep a spark to her 3 breach. And then we've got we've got a total of 5 ether. So I think for that, Nyrisia is going to go Entangled Shard and a Glass-Eyed Oracle. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Next card out of the turn order deck is the Nemesis card. Uh-oh. So Bleed Static goes off. Player with the most prepped spells in hand suffers 2 damage for each of their prepped spells. Unfortunately, that is Solidia, and I totally spaced on that being there. So Solidia actually does go down to 0 health. So Solidia is exhausted, and I'm just going to double check what happens. Resolve the Nemesis' effect twice, so we draw 2 beacons. First beacon that comes up is a draining beacon. Immediately, any player suffers 1 damage. And that has to be Nyrisia, because Solidia can't be targeted by anything that can't be targeted by damage. And protective beacon with 3 health. Then Eye of Nothing goes off, which means we unleash twice more. So on here, so our next beacon is a Grave Beacon. 1 health. Immediately, the player with the lowest life suffers 1 damage. That's Nyrisia. And Draining Beacon again. So Nyrisia suffers 1 damage again. That puts her down to 6. Then our next card from the Nemesis deck, Venomous Coil. To power 3, unleash twice. Then, any player suffers damage equal to the number of beacons in play. Yikes. That's a power 3. I think we'll have to send Nyrisia we'll have to send our ladies beacon hunting. Nyrisia is up on that. She will start off by taking out one of the draining beacons with her spark to a 3 breach. Let's see, then she's going to go Conflagration to a 3, Nyrisia's Fury to her 1. Then we'll discard the spark to take out this Grave Beacon to Dark Blessing. And she's got 2 to buy with, which is going to be another charge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then we'll shuffle up the turn order deck. So now if Nyrisia bites the dust, now we lose. But let's see what we can do here. First card up is a Nemesis turn. It's a regular Nemesis turn. Oh, I forgot to deal the damage from the last time the Haze Spewer was up. Gravehold will be taking another 4 damage. Which brings that down to 3. This ticks down. And then our next card from the Nemesis deck. Armored Haze. Oh, fantastic. Persistent. Any player suffers 1 damage for each shield token this minion has. Then this minion suffers 1 damage. Which will, of course, get eaten by the armor. Next card from the turn order deck. Player 2. So over to Nyrisia. Let's see. Nyrisia is going to conflagrate the protective beacon for 3 damage, and she'll get an ether for that. Then Nyrisia's Fury will work on the Armored Haze. So that'll take away a shield token, but give her a charge. Let's see, we've got another conflagration, a spark, and then 2, 5, 6. What do we want to do with that? 6 to buy with, I think is going to be a... Let's see, so that's 6 if I'm getting a spell, and I think I am. Actually, that's going to be 2 more conflagrations. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I don't totally hate that, just mostly hate it. But let's see what we've got coming up here. Player 1, so over to Solidia. Let's go with a Warping Haze on the Draining Beacon. We'll make sure Venomous Coil isn't a problem. Then we'll spark the Armored Haze to knock another shield token clear. And you like my health counters? That I use them frequently. Thanks, Troy. I figured using dice instead of all the tokens that come with Aeon's End is easier for two reasons. Because the health changes constantly, and it's a lot cleaner, I think, than putting all of those tokens on the enemies. So we're going to prep a pair of sparks and 2 ether to buy with, which gets Solidia a charge. So that's it for Solidia's turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, next card coming out of the deck, out of the turn order deck, is player 2. So that's over to Nyrisia we go. Let's see, 3 damage. We've got to start racing the boss here. So I'm going to point that conflagration at Maelstrom Risen for 3 to bring him down to 39. Then we'll spark another shield token off of Armored Haze. And then we'll prep a spark to her 3 breach, and I've got 4 to buy with, which will be... Actually, you know what? I think better idea is going to be 3... How many conflagrations does she have? I think she's got most... Yeah, she's got most of the conflagrations. The 3 is going to be a Warping Haze. Then we're going to discard a crystal to ping the last armor token off the Armored Haze. That way, when it tries to do damage to Nyrisia, it won't do anything, but it'll kill itself instead. 1, 2, 3. Take the discard pile, flip it over. 4, 5. Okay. Next card from the turn order deck is a Maelstrom Assault turn. Fortunately, we flip the Assault turn, the beacon part of the Assault turn, the bird. Then the Haze Spewer deals 3 damage to Gravehold, bringing Gravehold down to 18. Then the Haze Spewer does 1 damage to himself. That ticks down to 1. And the Armored Haze tries to do damage to Nyrisia, but it can't do anything. Instead, it'll kill itself. Then the next card coming out of the Nemesis deck is Hunted. Unleash twice. The player with the lowest life suffers 1 damage. That, once again, is Nyrisia. So now we've got 2 more beacons coming out. First beacon coming out is a Guardian Beacon, 1 armor and 2 health. And a Protective Beacon for 3 health, with 3 health. And gee, I wonder what's coming out of the turn order deck here. Look at that, it's Solidia. Let's see, since I want to keep the Venomous Coil to a minimum, I'm going to use both sparks to take out the Protective Beacon. And then looking at Solidia's hand, she will prep... Is she turning over her discard pile? Yes, she is. That's unfortunate. But no help for that. Solidia's Spark, and then 3 or 6 if I'm gaining a card, and she will gain a Catalyst. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I don't completely hate that, I just mostly hate it. Right. Hopefully, we can set this up where Nyrisia is able to take out the... We might have to try to take out that Guardian Beacon, mostly because I want to make sure Venomous Coil does no damage to Nyrisia. Just giving this a quick shuffle. And our first card from the turn order deck is Nyrisia. I will spark. Unfortunately, the extra damage will go to waste as we're pinging the armor token off. Let's see, we'll go Conflagration to 3. Actually, yeah. Conflagration to 3. Nyrisia's Fury to 1. 2 to buy with, which is going to be another charge. And I'll discard the Spark to Nyricia's Dark Blessing to deal 1 damage to the Guardian Beacon and hope that we're able to take that thing out before the Nemesis gets its next turn. 3, 4, 5. The reason I'm trying to take that out is because Venomous Coil is going to go off on the Nemesis' next turn. So I want to try to make sure Nyrisia takes no damage. Unfortunately, the turn order deck says, nice try. So Gravehold will take another 2 damage down to 16, but then Haze Spewer suffers a damage. That ticks off. We unleash twice. Oh, that actually would have put beacons into play anyway. So our first card, our first beacon, is another Guardian Beacon. And a Misery Beacon. 2 health, and immediately any player discards a card in hand. Oop. Now this, let me just check here. Oh, Solidia needed to they needed to discard destroy a breach, and then discard all of her charge tokens. Okay, when an exhausted player suffers damage, Gravehold instead suffers twice that damage. Okay, and then any player discards a card in hand. Solidia will ditch a crystal to that. Then Nyrisia takes 3 damage because because there are 3 beacons in play, so she's down to 2, which means we are in a rough spot here. So our next card up, yikes, Tremor. To discard, spend 7 ether. Power 2, unleash twice. Gravehold suffers 4 damage. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And if this is an assault turn, we just lose because Nyrisia is going to get domed. Actually, Gravehold suffers 1 damage. I might have been doing that all wrong, but player 1's up regardless. Let's see. Solidia is going to deal 1 damage to the Guardian Beacon. This Guardian Beacon will just take that out. And she gains an Ether. Which the Ether probably isn't going to do much of anything. We'll go Warping Hazes and Glass-Eyed Oracle. 3 will get her another Warping Haze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That hand is mostly trash, but there's nothing I can do about it. Next card up from the turn order deck is an assault turn. And with 2 beacons in play, that does deal just enough damage to Nyrisia, and it takes her out. So both mages are exhausted, which means we have lost this game against Maelstrom Risen. Yowza. Yeah, I kind of derped more than a little bit on Bleed Static. Because I forgot that was 2 damage for each prepped spell. That seems way busted to be a level 1 card, but yeah. A level 1 card and no way to get rid of it. Yikes. But yeah, sometimes that's just the way the cards fall in Aeon's End. But that'll do it for this playthrough of Aeon's End. We're not quite done yet, though, because I just got a delivery in earlier today that was waiting for me after I got home from work. So I'm going to do a bit of cleanup here, and then we're going to crack that delivery open here on the channel. I want to get just enough here out of the way so I can bring the box in shot. I'll probably end up worrying about the majority of cleanup later. But yeah, that was pretty brutal. Didn't help at all. I had a lot of those beacons coming out. But again, that huge misplay on Bleed Static didn't do me any favors either. Plus, I always had a feeling coming into this game that I was going to have problems with that very inaccessible market anyway. And yes, I know I'm probably making excuses at this point, but I'm just laying down what I was up against here. So we'll get all of that out of the way, and I think we've got just enough here to at least now bring the box in shot.